Wait, come on. This has got to stop, yeah?
What?
This whole following thing.
I'm totally not following you.
You are?
We talked about it. I live around here.
You live around here. Come on.
It wasn't meaning to be weird. It's nice to see you again.
Well, I wish I could say the same, to be honest.
Come on, don't tell me you didn't have at least a little bit of a nice day.
Look, I don't want to be rude, but it was more a sympathy date.
Oh, come on, you had at least a little bit of a nice time. We could try again.
No, listen, I've tried to be gentle to you. I have texted you and said that this isn't working.
How about we go on one more date, you give me a second chance and we just see how things go?
No, listen, you've got to take no for an answer, okay?
Just thought it'd be nice to bump into each other and maybe go for a coffee.
No, listen, come on, have some dignity a little bit now.
I just thought it'd be nice to be able to go for a coffee and just have a chat.
Wow, those big women sure can't get enough of Clint, and leave him alone, can they?
Leave me alone.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Luke Radowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com, and we are going to be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and craziest news developing right now. As, of course, there's reports of a mutant strain of monkeypox. There's more threats in the Middle East. John Mellencamp just went cray-cray. As, of course, we soon might be having the ousting of the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, over some very serious issues that we are going to be discussing here, all for the next 2 hours here on this independent media broadcast. If you're watching this show, share it with your friends and family members, as of course your participation is more important than ever, and one of the ways that we are still here as an independent media organization, mainly because individuals just decide to copy the URL and get it out there to their loved ones, to their friends, and they could also be a part of the conversation. One easy way to do that is to, of course, sign up to lukeunfiltered.com, and then by doing so, you get the ability to call in to the show, as we are going to be taking callers in about an hour and a half from now. There's no filters. There's no questions that are out of bounds. You could ask us or show us whatever you want right now, all just by signing up to lukeunfiltered.com. As, of course, with your memberships, you get a lot of exclusive videos. We just released one for you a couple hours ago, and you also get nature hikes, which we are going to be doing this Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern here in Miami, Florida. The next week, April 28th, we're going to be doing a nature hike in Austin, Texas. The address of that will be released the day before the hike, as of course we are finally going to be touching grass and not just talking online politics. Another way that you guys could participate in the conversation is by checking out mysuperchat.com, and your super chats could actually trigger some really fun interactions, as we saw last night with Jeremy from the Quartering that donated $100, and they also get to show up on the screen. We prefer you guys use mysuperchat.com, mainly because it takes a 3% service charge. YouTube, 30% service charge, but regardless of that, we will be trying our best to read as many of your super chats as long as they keep flowing with the conversation that we are having. As today, we are going to be having a conversation with the one and only Greg Pasta. Greg, for the people who don't know you, who are you and how would you introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Craig.
Greg, potato. You know what I was trying to say.
Pasta Jardula.
Mr. Pasta, for the people who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
I would, normally introduce myself as Craig Pasta Jardula, or AKA CPJ. I'm kind of doing that whole thing right now. Not really. That's a little bit corny, but, just as an independent media journalist. And, thank you so much. It's too close. Sorry.
No, I'm just trying to get it down so the camera can see it.
That's very important. Thank you, Clint, so much. Soft socialist, leftist libertarian, however you want to classify me. I'm just an, independent thinker. And it's pretty wild being here today, Luke, because, your work inspired a lot of the citizen journalism that I was able to do to this day, and thank you so much for showing us that we didn't need to be sponsored by the big boys, by MSNBC or CNN, to be a journalist. All we needed was a microphone, a camera, and just get on out there. But also, thank you for getting me demonetized for talking about Epstein and all that other stuff. So a double thank you.
You're welcome. And you need a good pair of cojones, which a lot of people need in this business. And the ability to reach out to some companies that you like as well, because otherwise there's like no real way to survive. But we're happy to have you. You do some cool stuff. You did some cool stuff with Jimmy Dore. You do some cool stuff with Jason Burmis. So it's nice to have you, and I bet our conversation definitely is going to be pretty interesting today, as of course there's a lot of different things to talk about that are definitely worth discussing and debating. Clint Russell, the future Vice President of the United States, is also in the house. Yeah. He's been busy with all the big bodacious ladies out there.
Yeah, man, they won't leave me alone. It's exhausting. I need to build a barricade. Anyways, Clint Russell, host of Liberty Lockdown, oppressed by large women all over the world, and
attacked by snoo all the time.
Attacked by snoo, co-host of Tower Gang. Don't ever watch that. And I got a new episode of Liberty Lockdown dropping tonight where I tear Ben Shapiro to shreds. So if you're not a fan of his, you will become a fan of mine very swiftly. Make sure you subscribe to Liberty Lockdown on YouTube and Rumble. We got Steph on the buttons.
Yeah, Steph, we are changed. Steph WRC, ready to push the buttons.
And she's ready for the hike as well, which, again, is going to be really fun. We never did this before. It's going to be a fun kind of experiment, as a lot of the people that you have seen on this show are also going to be coming out on this hike. Not Clint, though. Clint's like, I'm too important. I'm not doing this. I don't want to be with the plebs. I don't want to be with the low lifes.
Speaking engagement in Maryland. I apologize.
Is this for the Minds Fest kind of thing?
He's going to do that in Austin, too.
Well, we're also going to be speaking at Minds Festival with you as well. I don't think we're on the same panel.
No, we're not.
But they booked me for the Mind Festival, and I'm like, I'm going to be in Austin, and I might as well kind of link up another hike in Austin. So I was like, I'll just do it the next day after the conference, which I think is going to be really fun if it works out. We'll see. Yeah. But I'm expecting a lot of people to come out this Saturday, so it should be fun. It's awesome to meet a lot of the people that keep this independent media organization going, and it's going to be awesome to try to kind of do habits together that are good for our mental and physical health, which I think we need now more than ever, as the situation politically is very tumultuous, especially here inside of the United States, as we might soon be having the ouster of the Speaker of the House, something that now kind of routinely happens, as the Washington Post has a very interesting article titled, quote, Mike Johnson faces growing momentum to oust him as House Speaker. Axios. Mike Johnson ouster threat causes House GOP tensions to erupt, and USA Today also has another article. House Speaker Mike Johnson job is in jeopardy, and I say yes, good. Absolutely, as NPR is also describing how he has been forced to skirt his own party in order to pass bills that, of course, are not advantageous for the American people, bills that spy on you, bills that finance the larger coffers of the military-industrial complex. This, as of course, it's harder and harder for Americans to make ends meet. But for some reason, Mike Johnson really wants more aid for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. Very little discussion on, of course, actual issues that affect Americans, as Thomas Macy has took to social media and has officially called for his ouster, criticizing him very heavily, and I would say rightfully so, as some people say Mike Johnson is a great change to the Speaker of the House position. Other people are saying, well, he's just kind of becoming as corrupted and as awful as all the other ones were before. What do you guys think of this kind of ritualistic now ousting of the Speaker of the House, and that almost now seems kind of routine and scheduled?
I love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but I mean, who are they going to pick right now? I think that both of us would want Thomas Massey to be Speaker of the House, but that's not going to happen. He's not going to get the votes with his own party.
Jim Jordan was considered last time very heavily, and Jim Jordan, to me, would be a lot better than Mike Johnson, for me at least. He has a better track record.
I mean, he's still a stand to Israel, so we have that going on over there, and I'm pretty sure he'll buckle.
Yeah, we're talking about Congress. Who isn't standing with Israel?
Just Massey. I think, honestly, it's Massey, and then some of the
woke crowd.
The hard leftist AOCs, maybe. And I
no.
AOC
actually, you know more about this than we do, especially when it comes to this kind of, some people say this woke-ification of these Congress members that do represent this kind of new party that is supposed to be representing some of the populist ideas, but they're kind of also turning their back on a lot of these populist ideas, just like the Republicans are, which is kind of surprising. I don't know if you want to speak to that, or if you've been happy with, Congresswoman AOC.
Not happy with any of the squad whatsoever on any of their stands. Obviously, they're more in line to raise hell about the culture war issues, but when it comes to foreign policy, they're awful. All the Democrats, all the lawmakers, even Barbara Lee, who voted against the AUMF, is for the Ukraine war and funding Ukraine.
You're kidding me.
So So, I mean, there's an old vote where, I don't know if you guys remember this, but AOC was going to vote against the funding of the Iron Dome. Nancy Pelosi went over to her, put her in line, and then she voted for it. So at the end of the day, they're going to do what Hakeem Jeffries says. So, it's just a lip service we're getting right now for them after how many months for them to start calling for a ceasefire, not out of the gate. So I don't believe anything they say whatsoever.
No, nor should you. I think what's really remarkable about this attempted ouster is that it was Massey who was actually the one who did not support the ouster of McCarthy to put in Mike Johnson. And the fact that he is now willing to see him removed really says, to me, it speaks volumes, because I respect Massey a lot. And for him to think that in fact, Johnson is worse than McCarthy really is pretty stunning. But if you actually look at what he did, he passed a multi-trillion-dollar omnibus spending bill, which was larger than Pelosi did in her entire tenure.
Well, Thomas Massey actually said this on Twitter earlier. We could pull up the tweet right now. He said, Speaker Johnson has led the GOP to pass an omnibus that spends more than Pelosi's highest year, an expansion of the domestic warrantless surveillance program, and this week he's pushing Schumer's dream bill, which contains $100 billion of foreign aid, mostly for war. Yeah, these are not America First policies. These are not policies that, of course, help out the American people. And he goes on and he says, hey, there might be a potential here where, of course, we want to deal with the border. We want to deal with situations that deal with the American people and might actually potentially help them. And he's even talking about how he might be co-sponsoring a motion with MTG specifically to force the ouster of Mike Johnson from the Speaker House position. And I think we're very close to this. We're in a position where there's a lot at stake here. It's going to be interesting to see how he's going to politically maneuver around this, because it doesn't seem like he has a lot of room. It doesn't seem like he has a lot of options here other than just kind of walking off the plank, which the Republicans look like they're probably going to make him walk off of.
Yeah. Well, he just done a 180 on Ukraine. He's done a 180 on the FISA courts. I mean, this was the whole thing, that he was supposed to be a freedom of speech type of guy. Glenn Greenwald did some great shows on him when he had spoken out, about the censorship that was going on. But we have more of the same when it comes to the Squad and the Democrats, too, as well. My channel, The Combo Couch, got censored a day after AOC released a letter saying, hey, listen, start reporting people out there that are bullying and whatnot. So when it comes to censorship, these leftists, right, the Squad members, they're just as bad. I mean, we're just going to have a serious problem, and it's unfortunately, this is going to make the Republicans look so weak when they do this, because a lot of people are, they're normies. They're not in the political echo chamber, so it makes them look weak more than anything.
But the Republicans have always been weak. They've always been yellow-bellied. So I would prefer more kind of deadlock. I would prefer more arguments. I would prefer more ousters. I would prefer them not have a Speaker of the House and them not do anything rather than what they're doing right now. I mean, this omnibus bill is ridiculous. This warrantless surveillance bill is ridiculous. Yeah. Financing and prolonging the further death of innocent Ukrainian men is ridiculous. And it's only being propped up as a political ploy to allow Joe Biden to save face on this ridiculous proxy war that clearly they're losing, but they just want to hold up until this election so they could get more votes, which is ridiculous. It needs to be called out, since, it's not just politicking at stakes here. It's world war, and it's the loss of life of so many innocent human beings, Slavic people that are fighting each other, taking each other's lives for what? Political brownie points in this upcoming election? That's ridiculous. Yeah. That should be called back immediately. And Mike Johnson, again, looks like he wants to help the Democrats here, which he would if he passes this larger military-industrial complex defense bill, which is not really defense, it's really offense.
An important thing to note, too, is that there has been a request. In fact, this is part of the reason that McCarthy was ousted and Johnson was put in, is that they were demanding that McCarthy do standalone bills. They didn't want to have these omnibus, right? So check this out. This is what Mike Johnson's plan is. He announces it late last night. He's being ratioed into oblivion, which I absolutely love. But he said, I'm going to do standalone bills. We're going to do a standalone for Taiwan. We're going to do standalone for Ukraine. We're going to do standalone for Israel. But this is why. It has nothing to do with him upholding his promise to do standalone bills. This is the only way they can get these bills passed, because the Democrats will come together to get the funding for Ukraine passed, and the GOP will come together to get the funding for Israel passed. That's the whole reason he's doing it, and it is absolutely reprehensible. And this is another very important thing to note that most people are not privy to. Thomas Massey was the only person that elucidated it this morning. He said, the last little clause, because I guess he's going to put 5 bills up. The 5th bill is, according to Johnson, was to help with our national security. Well, actually, what it entails, according to Thomas Massey, is the TikTok ban. He didn't want to say it because he knows it's not popular. So that's going to be on top of the FISA extension, on top of multiple proxy wars, on top of hundreds of billions of dollars that we don't have, on top of our fiscal deficit and our financial cliff that we're standing on the precipice of. I mean, this is all so dangerous and so obviously not in alignment with the voting base of the GOP. I hope this dude gets ousted. I don't give a shit if it. Excuse me. I don't give a. If it makes them look weak. Yeah. You need to pay a price when you make promises and then you lie and you try and destroy this country. I don't care at all. Honestly, I would rather it be Hakeem Jeffries, because then the GOP cannot vote alongside with it. They would vote as a monolith against Jeffries if that was the case.
That is true. But what about Gates? I mean, I'm interested to see what about Gates. What if they put Gates forth, right? You know, obviously being a leftist or whatever you want to call me nowadays, I don't agree with Gates when it comes to Israel. I don't agree with him when it comes to China.
Right.
But maybe that TikTok bill, which is not a TikTok bill, right? It doesn't even mention TikTok or ByteDance in the bill. It's the Patriot Act for the internet. It's just terrible. It's awful. And it's just going to allow a gateway for unlimited spying on us and stuff like that. But I mean, with Gates,
along with FISA too.
Yeah. I mean, with Gates, I think it would be interesting. You know what I'm saying? At this point, I'm taking any little victories whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I like Luke's preference. I like yours. As you and I share that Massey would obviously be the best, but I don't think he's got a shot at getting it. My whole point is this: if you're going to continue to drive us towards the cliff or off the cliff, I don't care. I'm not going to go with the lesser of two evils when the lesser of two, it's clear evil, like really overt evil. We are risking World War III, and Mike Johnson wants to expedite that process. Get out.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Stop the train. I don't want the train moving.
Yeah,
and Pasta, we might disagree here, but for me, the best government is no government. and with the way that they've been operating, for frick's sakes, I think there's a legitimate argument to make here, because look what they're trying to ram through. Look what they're trying to push through. There's so much economic inequality. There's so much things that people are dealing with every single day when they go to the supermarket, and then they're being told, hey, you got to sacrifice a little bit more. We're going to make sure that you just have to give it a little bit more, because we have this larger geopolitical agenda that we want to carry out in the Middle East and inside of Europe that largely doesn't even benefit you, doesn't help anyone else, but allows a lot of kind of tracksuit kind of bureaucrats to get their side money, which is crazy.
I love this. You guys are Marxists. You want to blow it all up. Look what's it.
No,
Marxists over here.
Let's
blow it all
want
up.
to inflate it and want it to grow. We want it to stop.
Marxists don't talk about the central bank. In fact, they prescribe a central bank.
They love a central bank.
Yeah,
we don't like the bank.
libertarians actually identified the core issue, which is the central bank, and we want it abolished.
Yeah, the commies
There's a minor difference there.
the
and we value property rights.
The commies want to put more coal into the train so it keeps going faster, and it rams more people that are tied down to the tracks that they forcibly put on there. We want the train to stop. I think that analogy is a little bit better.
I did think we just have an American mindset about this. When you go overseas and you see like socialists in Nicaragua, you understand the collective mindset coming together to get the empire off the back. Remember, freedom to them is freedom to have their own resources, freedom to have the United States tell them not what to do. And I believe that we can come together in a collective manner and do what's best for all of us. We just have to do it in a very cautious, safe way. That's why elections are the most pressing issue, because we can fire those who don't do a good job and we can hire those who we want to do the right job. So that's why, you
could also do that with your dollar under free market capitalism, which a lot of people say is a lot more of an important voting
be
point.
Worth anything, Luke.
That's right.
Because
of the banksters. Because
of the corporations then too as well.
I would respectfully disagree. I don't think it's the corporation. I think it's really the big banking.
They're the ones who are influencing policies, right? I mean, we can say it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Of course, undoubtedly. I mean, the real issue is that the corporations own the government. Yeah. So this is why I don't understand why all leftists don't become abolitionists of the government, given that all of their power stems from the government itself.
Yeah. The larger choo-choo train that we were just describing is pretty much run by a lot of the special interest groups that are using government as the train to run poor people over. I think we could. I think we could agree with that. But I think a lot of the bigger powers that pull a lot of the strings really don't like competition, really don't like businesses, really don't like entrepreneurship, really don't like capitalism because it interferes with their monopoly of control, which a lot of leftists want more of. And to me, if we got rid of that and allowed more of decentralization and allowed more people to be able to offer solutions to their neighbors and communities based on how they want to see them and to be more independent outside of the state control, I think life would be better. That's my perspective. And my perspective is, of course, skewed and biased because I'm also Polish, and we also dealt with communism and central controllers and dealt with the state in almost every aspect of our life, which we really didn't like. So that's my perspective. That's my 2 cents. If you have a counter argument,
well, no, I'm just
going to
say that I think Clint was on my show with Fiorella and Caleb Maupin, and they argue this point of view that that's not really true communism, right? And it's not about any particular ism, whether it be capitalism or communism. It's those who sit above those systems. They can manipulate any single system. I mean, we're supposed to be the capitalist of all capitalists here in the United States, and we're dealing with mad censorship. We're dealing with pretty much fascism. We're not turning into a communist state. We're turning into a fascist state where the corporations control everything, write the legislation. They control all the resources, and that's what it's all about. I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of socialists they just want decisions to be made in a courtroom instead of a boardroom, and that's the biggest thing. The proletariat, the workers controlling the means of production. I mean, they have a blind eye to too much central power, and that's where I have my issues with them. But I think we just have to find a little bit of column A and column B to have a good, a good system moving forward. It's got to be like a mixed economy. You know what I'm saying? Like China, which you don't like at all. But
no.
But you know what I'm saying?
We definitely
we are like China.
I was just gonna. I'm literally thinking as you were talking because you're describing how Atlas. It's okay. You're describing how the system is kind of fascistic. I would say the system's turning more into a Chinese system where the government's kind of more involved in private enterprise, more involved in business, and kind of making decisions allegedly for the benefit of the people, but in reality, they're making the kind of decisions that are best for them and the individuals that are more involved with them. It's just in China, they have more of a say to the larger kind of central control that they put on everybody. And they're able to, of course, as Justin Trudeau says, turn their economy on the dime, which Justin Trudeau really kind of appreciated and talked very well about. And I kind of disagree with that larger notion, since I see a lot of problems with that. But we could continue the discussion. There's also this very interesting video from Mike Johnson that also tried to explain why he flip-flopped on FISA, a video that has sparked a lot of very interesting conversations to how just potentially maybe he was convinced to vote for this warrantless spying bill. Here's the 30-second video.
When I was a member of the judiciary, I saw all the abuses of the FBI, the terrible abuses over and over and over, the hundreds of thousands of abuses. And then when I became speaker, I went to the SCIF and got the confidential briefing from sort of the other perspective on that to understand the necessity of Section 702 of FISA and how important it is for national security. And it gave me a different perspective. So I encourage all the members to go to the classified briefing and hear all that and see it so they can evaluate the situation for themselves. And I think some opinions have changed both ways, but that's part of the process. You got to be fully informed.
How convenient. Secret classified meetings that we have no ability to listen to or understand that somehow convinced Mike Johnson that the intel agencies not needing a warrant to spy on you is somehow critically important. Of course, there's a lot of judges. They could very easily get these warrants. A lot of these warrants, they're just rubber stamped. It's just one step away. That's not that difficult for the bureaucracy to do. But what did they tell him during these private meetings that you think convinced him to say, yeah, warrantless spying on all Americans, absolutely great idea, and totally won't be abused politically like it already has?
And I think they brought him into those meetings and say, hey, see the pictures of your family on the wall? You either vote this way or that's it. It's almost kind of like that locker room speech they got a hold of Bernie Sanders when everybody was saying, oh, the black eye. They got him in a locker room, and all of a sudden he just changed completely, went completely with the Democrats. It does remind me of Donald Trump, too, as well. His stance on Israel, and then he speaks to, Adelson, and he completely flips. And then, the whole Assange thing, he's WikiLeaks, and then he won't pardon him at all. So
we love WikiLeaks.
We love the WikiLeaks. It's just,
and then he's like, I don't know who Julian Assange is. And I'm like, why? I don't understand how he could just absolutely come out on the world stage and say he doesn't know who he is. Yeah. And now Joe Biden is kind of pushing out the feelers to potentially pardoning Julian Assange, which I think if he would get a lot of support, and it could sway the election, and it could make a significant difference here. As of course, there's a lot of anti-establishment people. There's a lot of leftists that are kind of on the fence here, and this Assange issue is an extremely important issue that it raises a lot of serious concerns about the First Amendment.
I don't think, and there was something that came out today, an assurance of sorts that kind of said, you know, it was wishy-washy with the language they use. I don't think that he wants to pardon. This is Joe Biden. I don't think he wants to pardon Julian Assange. I think he just doesn't want to deal with it in an election year right now because it's so unpopular. So if he can continue to stall, use these stall tactics, and basically at the end of the day, they want to make sure that Assange dies, I think, in prison and stuff, and torturing him that way. At the end of the day, the foreign policy apparatus wants to make sure that nobody ever speaks out against them, and that's what Julian Assange is. And they're not going after Julian Assange. They're coming after all of us. They're just using Julian Assange to get to us. So that's what's going on here.
I totally agree. And what he was talking about is that basically Assange's attorneys were requesting, I think it was assurances that he wouldn't be put in prison, or there was some
the death penalty too.
Oh, death penalty, yeah. And they wouldn't give it to him. So we're far from him actually being pardoned. I certainly hope that Biden does. It would never ever receive my vote as a consequence of that, but I would certainly applaud him very loudly if he were to do so. But I'm going to be totally honest. I will never forgive this government for what they've done to Assange.
Yeah.
Like even if they were to pardon him and build a statue for him at this point, like the abuse that you've put that man through for being, arguably the greatest journalist in my lifetime.
Never had to retract the story.
Yeah.
I'd tell you this much. If Donald Trump did that, I would have wore Make America Great a hat on if he pardoned him. I'm sorry, Luke.
No, absolutely. And it was Bush, it was Obama, and let's not forget, under the Trump administration, it was his administration that specifically went after Assange and then got him out forcefully out of that Ecuadorian embassy and put him in jail and said, no, we are charging you. You are going to come back to the United States. You're not an American citizen. We do not care. But the main reason why Assange is in jail, essentially being tortured in solitary confinement, which has already deteriorated his mental health in so many negative, horrible ways, is because of the Trump administration. Yeah. And
try to whack him.
Yeah, no. Yeah. There were serious conversations. There was I think it was Richard Grinnell that was someone that released some information about some kind of backdoor deals that didn't happen, and therefore Assange, who didn't take the deal, didn't reveal his sources, was going to be punished. And for this man to be punished for not relieving his
sources,
not getting his sources compromised is something that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. They're doing the same thing with Catherine Herridge right now. She's on trial for it.
What's that case about?
Catherine Herridge, I think she was CBS News reporter, if I'm not mistaken, but she was reporting some things that were very bad news for the government, and they demanded that she turn over her sources. She rejected that, and now she's being prosecuted for it. It's unbelievable. I mean, this is like journalism 101, that you have every right to protect your sources. And because of the information that she released, they are trying to throw her in jail. Yeah. And I just think that this is... like, especially the fact that journalists don't speak out about this is what really offends me more than even the average voter. It's like how do you not identify that this is incredibly important?
And it sets up a chilling effect. It sets up an effect that makes anyone terrified who's a journalist or purports themselves to be a journalist, because why would they release a story that the government doesn't want released through secret sources? Because they're going to find themselves being raided by the FBI, just like James O'Keefe did. Yep. And this chilling effect is real. I mean, just even thinking about it myself, I remember seeing the writing on the wall, and I was like, they're going after everyone who's working with anonymous sources from the government and releasing a lot of important information that the people used to be able to know, but the government has now criminalized in a very deceivious, very horrible way. And I made the decision. I was like, hey guys, don't send me any classified stuff. I don't want it. I can't handle it. I don't have the lawyers. I don't have the money for the lawyers. I don't want to deal with the significant repression that all these other people are facing, just like James O'Keefe did with the FBI raid on him for the Ashley Biden diary, which was another story. That
by the way, they're prosecuting the lady who found it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the
Not
same
the
thing as
prosecutor.
Assange, right?
She was sentenced to jail. She was sentenced to a month or 2 months in jail recently.
Yeah.
Which
Which ultimately proves that the diary is real, because otherwise you can't say that it was the property of Joe's daughter.
Yeah.
Or that it was made up, or that it was fake. And again, James O'Keefe couldn't verify it, and he didn't publish the story. And then the FBI still broke down his door and raided his private home, and
Well, that's how I know that it was, in fact, her diary, though, because why would they do that if it wasn't actually her diary?
And I also think that we have to, while we're pointing this stuff out when it comes to Assange, that we have to point out that satanic blob of jello, Mike Pompeo, who also pushed for a lot of this stuff with the Espionage Act. And
he was the one that really led the charge to see Assange assassinated,
absolutely.
as far as I know.
No, it was him. It was him.
No, they talked about taking out Assange. They talked about taking his life.
Yeah.
And they extensively did. Let's just be honest.
Well, they
here.
understood who Donald Trump was. Let's whack him. We don't have to go do anything. Let's whack Maduro. Let's whack Soleimani. Let's whack him. So,
Yeah, but I in fairness, I don't know that Trump was actually like read into that, and obviously didn't happen. So I have to give him some credit for that. But
well, that's because they never transported him. They never went along with the plan because it was supposed to be when they were transporting him to whack him. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a whole. There was a whole thing written about it and stuff like that. But no, I mean, he whacked Soleimani. He tried to whack Maduro, so he was all into the whacking thing. I mean, it was his way of doing, some foreign policy.
I never heard about the Maduro thing. What happened with Maduro and how?
Tried to hit him with a drone at an event, and
this is the president of Venezuela.
This is the president. He's a Chavista, president of Venezuela, and it was a drone blew up, and they tried to get him. It was the State Department who did it, and he survived. And it's just Donald Trump's
Did it
way
blow
of.
up?
Yeah, it did blow up,
but it was just too far away.
Too far away.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, Maduro has people who look like him that parade around
body
as
doubles.
him a lot, and I remember hearing about crazy like body double stories about him. But I mean, I haven't seen official confirmation on that. But there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in Venezuela, someplace that you're going to be traveling to and doing
next couple
on
months.
the ground reports. I remember being there myself and finding myself not in a kind of fun situation. Personally myself. But back to the topic of discussion here, because there's a lot of other things that we want to, of course, also talk about here, as Mike Johnson also came out and responded to a lot of the criticism that he's facing, and he's responding by saying, quote, "I am not resigning," as he is pushing forward with aid to Ukraine and aid to Israel. This, as Volodymyr Zelensky just came out in another bombshell interview and described how his chances of winning the war without U.S. support is basically impossible. Here's a video of PBS News interviewing Volodymyr Zelensky recently that I think is worth watching.
I will give you one example, a very simple example. The Tropilska power plant. Electricity in the Kyiv region depends on it. 11 missiles were headed towards it. The first 7 we took down. 4 destroyed Tropilska. Why? Because we had 0 missiles. We ran out of all missiles. When someone says that our allies cannot provide us with this or that weapon, or they cannot be in Ukraine with this or that force because that would be perceived as if Ukraine is engaging NATO in the war, well, after yesterday's attack, I want to ask you a question. Is Israel part of NATO or not? Here is the answer. Israel is not a NATO country. The NATO allies, including NATO countries, have been defending Israel. They showed the Iranian forces that Israel was not alone. And this is a lesson. This is a response to anyone on any continent who says you need to assist Ukraine very carefully so you don't engage NATO countries in the war.
You have said that if the U.S. Congress does not approve the aid that it's currently considering, which is some $60 billion that's been held up by Republican lawmakers, you said if that doesn't move forward, Ukraine will lose the war. If that aid does not move forward, how long do your troops have? Is this a matter of weeks or months? I mean, could they sustain a spring Russian offensive?
I can tell you frankly, without this support, we'll have no chance of winning. You need to be much stronger than your enemy. Today, our artillery shell ratio is 1 to 10. Can we hold our ground? No. In any case, with these statistics, they'll be pushing us back every day. To defend 100% of what's in our control, we would need to go from 1 to comparing numbers.
10 to 10.
Yeah, not a good situation to be in, as of course Volodymyr Zelensky definitely probably feels like the odd girl that was just dumped by the U.S. empire, as of course the new Ashkenazi girl is a lot more attractive to the U.S. military empire.
We're dating Netanyahu now. Sorry, Vlad.
Yeah. And Netanyahu definitely pulled out the tricks, and currently the United States is like, Well, we have our priorities here, and clearly the people of Ukraine have been sold a lot of lies. They've been screwed over. There was a nuclear deal that they made many decades ago that put them in a very horrible situation with the Western world promising that it will protect them. And now it looks like they are obviously clearly going to lose. Everyone kind of saw this situation from the very beginning. What is prolonging this war going to do other than cost a lot of innocent lives? I don't know. I don't understand why we can't have a peace deal. I don't understand why we can't have detente. I don't understand why we can't come to the negotiations table and figure out a deal in order to stop this madness, because this is ridiculous.
Well, because our lawmakers are still making so much money off it. It's a money laundering thing. And it's so funny because I was going to say he's acting like in Sopranos terms, the second Guman. He used to be the first Guman, but now he's the second Guman. He's very, very jealous. But this is getting really, really dangerous. I mean, anything that Ukraine does, the Russians are going to look at it as we doing it, the United States. And especially that Moscow massacre over there. I mean, you have the State Department coming out and saying, hey, listen, we're going to tell people in the Moscow embassy, the American embassy in Moscow, don't go into large crowds. Don't go to music events, right? Like, and this happens, and the Russians let them go. They let them get closer, the terrorists, to Ukraine before they grab them. They will listen to their phone calls and everything. So they know everything that's going on. And the more we do this, I mean, how much time do we have to F around before we find out? The leaders of the foreign policy apparatus are getting us in serious, serious danger right now. And we're very privileged because we're standing behind the gun. But, that's not going to last forever right now. So, I mean...
Well, that's the issue, is that we're still acting as if we're the only one with a big gun. Like Russia has a nuclear arsenal that's comparable, if not superior, to the United States, and we just pretend as if it's not the reality. You have to respect a nation with thousands of nuclear warheads, and for the life of me, I don't understand. Like this is what I broke down on Liberty Lockdown that comes out tonight. Is like Shapiro is still talking about us as if we're like 1995 America, where there was no legitimate competitor to our global hegemonic dominance. It's like, that's not reality, dude. China has 1.5 billion people. They have 300 nuclear warheads. Russia has over 2,000. It's like, what are we talking about? They also have natural resources. They also have an economy. They also have lower inflation rate than we do. We have $35 trillion of debt. We have $1 trillion plus in interest alone. We are absolutely going to go bankrupt, and that's assuming we avoid World War III. If we actually enter World War III, then we're talking hyperinflation. It's super dangerous, and no one's actually being honest with the American people about what the consequences will be for us to try and decide who gets to preside over some Eastern European nation that none of us actually could have pointed out on a map a few years ago. It's absurd.
Yeah. Well, I think that at this point that the Russians are going to make a decision. I don't see it any way possible that they can go on like this. I think they're going to have to take out Kiev. Koki Smurf has to go. You know what I'm saying? It's just at the end of the day, whether they try to do it the old American fashion way by trying to influencing a sort of color revolution over there or whatnot, or just take them out. I mean, they can't let them exist over there. Nuclear missiles at their borders. So I think that's the next move, is going to see Russia try to make some type of regime change over there in Kiev. Man. And that's to avoid a World War III, an all-out World War III with us.
Well, they're definitely making a lot of very kind of aggressive moves against them that they didn't before. It's usually American military doctrine to go after energy, to go after transportation, and it seems like the Russians have kind of stopped, never really kind of did that until this kind of point where they are attacking a lot of key infrastructure points inside of Ukraine, making life very difficult for the local populations. They're making it difficult for people to move around, making it difficult for people just to be able to kind of maintain their life. As of course, not so long ago, it used to be pretty normal. It's becoming less and less normal. And this larger doctrine is definitely going to make Ukraine more kind of desperate. We have seen very desperate actions by them, and those desperate actions are also very dangerous actions, not just for the people of Ukraine, but for the larger escalation of this conflict that already has reached peak insanity, in my opinion. The blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline, the attacks on Sevastopol, the attacks inside of Russia signal larger kind of escalations that are inevitable. And the longer this war goes on, the more we face global consequences for it, which are going to be affecting not just the people of Ukraine, but the poorest people in the world. Grain exports are down. Ukraine is known as like the Afghanistan of Europe, but they're also known as kind of the breadbasket of Europe. So food prices are going to go up. Energy prices are already going up. Ukraine depends it gets a lot of its energy from nuclear sources, and at any moment there could be a Chernobyl-like event, and there's accusations from the Ukrainians and accusations from the Russians that they're trying to blow up nuclear reactors. That happens, it's going to be more of a humanitarian disaster for everyone in the region. And very easily, very quickly, there could be another Chernobyl-like attack, a Chernobyl-like event that could lead to a lot of life loss that there's no getting back at all. And that's pointless.
I got to admit that by now I thought they would have found an off-ramp and already turned Kiev into a 15-minute city. I thought that's what it's all about. No, I really do. I honestly felt that way, that's what they were going to try to do with Kiev. BlackRock and Vanguard is all up in now with the grain, buying a lot of it. And so they've gotten
Zelensky even described how there's going to be mass migration, how they're working specifically on getting more people from the third world into Ukraine in order to replace the local populations as well. So they're following the same kind of globalist protocols as Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, as you mentioned, are all heavily invested on them winning, and they want to make sure that their investments pay off. What does that mean? That means they have to somehow win this war. How? I don't see it. It's impossible.
They can't.
Yeah.
They can't. I think that this war is obviously lost. It's just a matter of, do you negotiate a ceasefire and partition the nation up where Russia takes the east and you get the west, or do you fight until it's over? And in which case you just get obliterated. And it's like the obvious answer is the same as it has been for 2 years now, that you need to negotiate peace. And I think that, ultimately Ukraine's only hope would be for NATO to actually enter that. And if they do, it's World War III. So there is no better option than to negotiate peace at this junction.
And the funny thing is that Russia never wanted the Donbass. They never wanted it Minsk 1, Minsk 2, this whole kind of theory that, Putin woke up one day and he wanted to re-expand the old Soviet Union. It's a bunch of bonkers. He didn't want to manage that. He wanted a Russian contingency, but he also wanted a Russian contingency within inside Ukraine, so therefore it wouldn't be fully, Azov battalion.
But my understanding is that he wanted that basically central Ukraine to be the buffer zone, kind of like a DMZ, where they could keep a little bit of gap between them and NATO, because I think that the State Department of the U.S. as well as the NATO alliance, Stoltenberg and these psychopaths, they continue to talk about, even to this day, like last week, NATO, they're talking about adding Ukraine to NATO. It's crazy.
Ridiculous.
I don't even know if Ukraine's going to exist in a few years, and they're still lying to the Ukrainian people saying, yeah, we're going to add you into NATO anytime now. It's like, no, you're not.
And the Russians are expanding the front line too, so it's this is not going to end well for them.
Yeah, and slowly and surely taking over more towns and more cities inside of Ukraine, which is just absolutely being obliterated. I mean, the frontline forces are exhausted. There's a lot of reports of a lot of the weaponry, a lot of the things that we paid for never getting to the front lines. And it's such a tragedy to have these people sold down the river to be essentially exploited and left in a situation that's not winnable. It was clear as day. And to me, there should be an off-ramp. And these people want this war to continue for 15 plus years. I just don't see it. I just don't see it with the number of people. There's already mercenaries from Colombia fighting on the Ukrainian front line. There's mercenaries from all private kind of military industrial complex organizations, all involved. The CIA was there ever since 2014, and they've been building and working on this, and they have failed.
Average age of a Ukrainian soldier now on the front line, 43 years old. They've killed off a young generation. It's sad.
We have a ton of debate about casualty figures on both sides of the Israel-Palestine war. We don't have really much discussion about that on Russia-Ukraine. Are you at all aware as to the casualties? Because I've heard such varying reports that I can't get a feel for it.
Well, I do listen to Ritter a lot, right? So I listen to Mark Sloboda, Colonel McGregor. Those are the people I'm kind of leaning on right now. They said over 500,000
I
Ukrainians
listen
killed,
to them too, and they say that.
old,
But if you actually look at corporate news, they will never go that.
Of course,
not even it's like a tenth that.
Have you ever? I mean, I've been looking at corporate news here and there, and I tend to do that. I read the newspaper here and there so I can get a sense of what the oligarchy wants to do. They're not even talking about Ukraine and Russia right now.
Yeah.
It's out of sight, out of mind. Americans,
It's over.
They don't pay attention to it anyways. Foreign policy is low on the chart, so hey.
Yeah, plus there's the Middle East that we could obsessively talk about. That's not a divisive topic at all. That's so easy to discuss that we're going to be discussing here in a little bit. Before we do, Steph, do you want to read off some of the super chats? This first one here, this mysuperchat.com.
Sure. We have one from Scrotus Magotis, and it says, if they were serious about winning the war in Ukraine, Congress would pass a law allowing Ukraine to conscript criminal aliens in the U.S.
I don't know if that's going to solve anything. We got another one here from Streamlabs.
Yes. It says, hi, guys.
Wait, who said it?
Clint's camel toe.
Hi.
And then we got another
Clint.
one here.
Yes. We have one from Ouija49.
Ouija.
Saying, FFS monkeypox now?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting discussion surrounding monkeypox that we probably will be getting into in a little bit. As, of course, let's pull up the next story and the next thing that everyone's obsessing about. And that, of course, is the conflict unfolding right now in the Middle East. That also is another one that is absolutely ridiculous. There's a lot of saber rattling. There's a lot of things that just don't add up. There's a lot of foolery. There's a lot of trickery. And there's a lot of war propaganda. As, of course, the first casualty of war is usually the truth. And that's exactly what we're seeing all over the world right now. As, of course, people need to be lied to. They need to be emotionally manipulated. They need to be hoodwinked in order to take the life of a fellow human being. And the propaganda efforts have definitely been ramped up a lot. This, as the New York Post now is reporting, that Iran is threatening to attack Israel with weapons, quote, it has not used before, as it gets its military support from Russia. And it's pretty clear the alliances between China, Russia, and Iran and other BRICS nations is definitely strengthening. And on the other side, you have Western leaders, you have the European Union, you have the United States, and you have Israel, along with the U.S. petrodollar, that are fighting against them. To me, this is something that is a lot bigger here, something that threatens world war. And Iran now is very aggressively answering back, saying, hey, we're going to attack Israel. We're going to attack American bases in the region as well if they get involved here and if Israel decides to retaliate against our own retaliation. As, of course, you see the cycle here looping once again and being ridiculous. How do you guys see this unfolding, as there is still a lot of rumors, a lot of conversations about Israel striking Iran soon? Do you think it will happen, or do you think they're calling it a day and they're going to peacefully walk away and cooler heads will prevail and this conflict will not escalate from here? What do you think will happen next?
I think it's close to a 0% chance that Israel does not respond. And I think the real question is, do they do what Iran did and kind of do a face-saving, not obliterate Iran type of attack, or do they go hard in the paint, in which case this thing is all-out war at that point? So I'm hoping that they will, even though I think it's very unlikely that they won't counterattack, I pray that it will be a low-level attack as opposed to a massive
Well,
one.
I think the Iranians are releasing this statement because I think they do expect some kind of retaliation from Israel, because they wouldn't be saying it. They wouldn't be threatening American bases. They wouldn't be threatening Israel, as they literally launched a 6-hour delayed rocket launch of some drones that were ineffective with low explosive payloads, and they literally told Israel 24 hours, or was it 48 hours beforehand that, hey, we're going to be doing this. And then as soon as they did, and the missiles were still, and the drones were still in the sky, they were like, okay, mission accomplished. We're done here. Yeah. And
the fight's over.
It's
Everybody
done.
go home.
We're finished. And Israel's like, wait, hold on a minute here.
Yep.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing that people aren't giving enough credence to is that it was U.S. military that helped stop that attack. Like, that's really not being reported widely enough that
it cost $1 billion for the defense of Israel that day to shoot down the missiles. Is that what you're kind of referring to?
Well, no, I'm saying that we actually launched, I don't know if it was intercepted by like air forces or if it was ground, but my understanding, or if it was our ships, I think it might have been our ships, but my understanding is that U.S. troops were involved in helping to basically shoot down a portion other than what the Iron Dome did. If that's true, which I think it is, then that means that like we are engaged in this war in a way that is higher level than even what we've seen in Ukraine over the past 2 years, and that is very dangerous.
Yeah, and today I think the Jordanians came out because they let them use their airspace, and Iran Iran told them, like, hey, man, if you're going to start assisting Israel and let them use your airspace to shoot down our missiles, and you want to get involved with this, just you better think twice about this. But I really often think, too, as well, when we talk about October 7th, there was a big debate whether it was a planned attack or it really happened, because Israel was slipping and concentrated a lot of their troops in the West Bank, right? Israel attacked an embassy. And that's a red line. I mean, Julian Assange was held up in the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy in England for many years, and the British didn't go in there and get him. Why? Because that's a red line. It's a sacred thing. You don't attack embassies. They attacked that embassy in Damascus, knowing that there had to be a response.
Of course.
So this is, to me, again, thinking, do the Malthusiasts of the world want a World War III? Because, we say this all the time, World War III would be fought with nuclear weapons. World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. So they're trying to push this catastrophic event, I think, because I think these global elites, and I am a leftist talking like that, they think they're going to hide in their bunkers and be safe from everything that's going to go around and just resurface up when the smoke clears. It's almost as if they want a World War style kind of catastrophe.
Yeah, but like,
which makes you wonder what is the next step going to be here. It makes you wonder because there's a lot of things politically at stake here, and this larger kind of Iranian distraction is kind of politically advantageous for Benjamin Netanyahu. That the longer this conflict goes on, the longer he stays in power, and the longer he's able to avert his population calling for his ouster. So. What do you think the next step? What do you think the next move here is? Of course, there's a lot of people bringing up religious prophecies. They're bringing up Albert Pike. They're bringing up all these other kind of eerily kind of weird predictions saying that this is going to be the kind of starting point. Bill Cooper also talked about this specifically. We played his video on lukeunfiltered.com today, by the way. And he described essentially a situation where this will be the launching pad, the start of this kind of global destruction, which is again, sounds like I'm being sensationalistic here, but with what's at stake here, that's a probability.
There's already foreign policy minds who said we're already in World War III. It just hasn't caught up to the American mind right now. And the sad part is that every single lawmaker over here in the United States is just in bed with Israel. I mean, look at Hakeem Jeffries in a statement coming out, and Elizabeth Warren for crying out loud. So, I mean, it seems like this has already been set in motion, and it's the wheels are already turning, and we're already on the path to World War III. And I think about it all the time. I mean, obviously, the way you looked at the whole. I don't think we can say it on YouTube. The sea situation.
Yeah, we can't say it. We can't say
it. Okay, so the way you looked at that, and once again, I had a different outlook than a lot of people in my tribe, right? And I looked at that as, wow, man, they think there's too many people on this planet, and they want a lot of us to go. So, what would make you put it past these people to have a World War?
Well, if the first casualty of war is the truth, then I think there's a fair argument to be made that the war began in 2020, because the truth died in 2020 in such a massive way.
Well, I would say 2001, personally, from my experiences.
But I'm saying in this current war, we actually went to war over that. So I agree with you.
Clint's still a baby in this movement. I'm the OG here.
You are the OG, buddy.
He is the OG.
But this has been going on for a very, very long time.
I just think those are different wars. That's all I'm saying.
Bill Cooper, before all of us, was kind of prophesizing all of this. He also predicted the events in 2001, and then he tragically lost his life after being taken out by authorities right after those events in 2001 in October. If you haven't read things like Behold a Pale Horse, some people say it's a fictional book. Some people say it's an absolute 100% accurate book. It's a book worth reading, in my opinion.
2001?
2001 is when William Cooper lost his life. Yeah.
Is that the same year that Kerry Mullis lost his life too, as well?
I'm not sure.
I think it is
about that. But this has been going back for me personally ever since 2001. 2020 is also another kind of major move. It was the next big thing, and it kind of does feel like this election year is going to be the year of the next big thing as well.
Yeah.
Where will it be? Will it be in Europe? Will it be with Israel? Will it be with monkeypox, which everyone's kind of talking about right now as well? What is going to be the next big thing? I have no freaking clue, but it definitely seems like we are on the trajectory of something new happening as there's new details of a new mutant strain of monkeypox that hit, quote, pandemic potential discovered in the Congo. My original reaction is, here we go again, with that GTA meme already in my mind here. What do you guys think would be the next thing? Where do you see the biggest kind of trouble ahead of us?
You know what? I think it's going to be a collaboration of everything. I think it's going to be a world war. It's going to be a crackerpox or a monkeypox, whatever you want to call it. And that's why I kind of mentioned Kerry Mullis, because I know we were going to be talking about this whole situation. And if you can have a mechanism in which you can have so many false positives, right, then you can control the narrative. Then you can make believe there's a crisis when there really isn't a crisis out there. So, I mean, I think it's all the weapons they have at one time. And at the end of the day, it's like Gerald Celente has said, no matter what, when the people start getting a hold of what's going on. And for me, the Epstein revelations, a lot of your work back in the days, man, that really changed my whole mind. When I saw that the elites can use children as currency, and it just changed my perspective on everything that was going on. Now I realize that everything that was going on in Congress was full of what, and it's what we're seeing right now today. They're going to use every single bit of piece of weaponry in their armory to thrust it upon the people, whether it be a world war, whether it be a biological weapon. It's all coming at us at one time, and they're just going to continue to ingest the fear porn because it works.
Well, that's what makes it so daunting, is that it is so multifaceted and it can come from so many different trajectories. I would caution people about this kind of acceptance that we've already entered World War III. I am of the belief that if we do enter World War III, the clock is ticking towards nuclear holocaust. So, like, whatever is in our power, even if the wheels are in motion, sand. You have to put sand in those wheels. You know what I mean? Like this is not something that anybody walks away from. And
those are old weapons, though. I disagree with you. I think those weapons are archaic. They're almost 100 years old. And they're absolutely they're 80 years old, but they're absolutely pointless when it comes to the larger kind of weaponry that they've developed, because they developed weapons that are far more superior, far more deadly, far more convenient. And I think we might already be in a world war, but it's a world war not between countries and nations, but between elites and everyone else. And I think there's a lot of biological warfare being conducted on a lot of people who are not paying attention, who are not suspecting this war to be waged against them, and they're being affected by it in a kind of weird way, where their kind of choices, their kind of conveniences are the weapons that are used against them. Yeah. So I think we are in fifth generational warfare. I think the population is struggling. I think they're dealing with a lot of significant financial, but also physical and mental health problems that are becoming an epidemic.
Oh, yeah.
And are leading to the utter destruction of life, not just to the destruction of testosterone or sperm levels or fertility levels, but the family unit is destroyed. It's not really here. People's own self-worth is gone. People's own kind of care and consideration about themselves and their family is gone. And I think that's the war. That's the bullets that are far more dangerous than actual real bullets. And that's why I think the larger kind of nuclear weapon is going to be a larger ideological one that takes the minds of people. And it's going to be a larger mind virus that captivates people and has them essentially take them and essentially has them take their own lives.
Sometimes I think it's not even a war that's going on. I think it's just a collaborative effort by the ruling class to just get rid of a lot of us. You know what I'm saying? They're just working together, and the appearance of war of nation states. It's the oligarchs and it's the rest of us, and that's something we have to get across to our heads.
Well, see, this is where I like 40% agree with you guys, and then I also still think that there are, even if you perceive it to be the oligarchs versus the average people, it's still warring factions that are vying for global control. Like the BRICS alliance versus the NATO alliance is a very real thing, in my opinion. Some people will argue that it's not. Some people will
not. If you listen to David Icke, you think it's a whole cabal just together working, right?
So that's what I'm saying.
It could be true. It could be a larger game that they're playing up against each other, playing us with. We're the pawns, and they're saying, yeah, we're just going to pretend that we're going to be fighting each other, but in reality, we're just going to be using this as an excuse to wage a larger war against everyone else.
Well, this is kind of my point, is that what makes this so challenging is that we can't even identify who we're up against.
Yeah.
Like it's and this is very emblematic of fifth generation warfare, where you don't know where it's coming from or who's ultimately responsible or who you need to be defending yourself from. And that's what makes this so challenging, and why, as much as I've read and researched and tried to get a handle on this, I'm still honestly largely in the dark as to like who is the real puppet master of all of this.
Yeah. Who controls the CIA? That's what I want to know.
Right.
Well, they practice a lot of magic, a lot of things in the cult, a lot of kind of old school kind of mystery schools as well. There's a lot of different things that we could get into. We all have our different theories of what's going on here. I do see a larger kind of concerted effort pushing a larger divide and conquer agenda amongst race as something that also has been captivating a lot of people who are hyper-focused on just one or another race of people pointing the finger at each other, which makes me think of this meme of this rich kind of oligarch talking to two working class people, and essentially there being a little bit of food that he's taken away from one person, giving to another man, and saying, hey, this guy really hates you. When in reality, we don't really hate each other. We just want to kind of live our lives. We just kind of want to have children. We want to have families. We want to reproduce. And we're not having any of that. As, of course, just figuring out a way to survive is becoming more difficult for the average American that's dealing with kind of the third world vacation and this kind of totalitarian technocratic system that is ever so evolving and already kind of taking control of people's lives with their every single convenient move that they make in it. We'll talk about that. There's also a lot of weirder kind of spiritual stuff that we're going to be talking about, especially when it comes to the hip-hop community. We have a very interesting video that we are going to be describing on Rumble, where the conversation will be continuing now, as, of course, we are going to be getting off of these technocratic gulag platforms, and we will be making our way to rumble.com. Rumble.com has been very nice, and they have just put us on the front page. You could watch us now just by simply going to rumble.com. Rumble.com/We Are Change is our main page, but they have put us as the front main show here next to Jeremy from The Quartering, who we just had on yesterday. So you want to find us, you want this conversation to continue, go to rumble.com. Steph, read the last few super chats here before we leave.
We have one from Nee saying, please look into the origins of the Cabbage Patch Kids. Human trafficking king for the rich ones.
Okay.
Okay, and you got another one above here?
Yes, and we have Ouija49 saying, the left, stop funding the genocide in Gaza. Also the left, we need to fund Ukraine killing their men.
Yes. And then you see a similar kind of polarity with the right, which also just likes to pick and choose their wars that they really like and wars that they really don't like.
Yeah, we can't afford to fund Ukraine, but of course we can send as much money as Israel needs.
Yeah, it just makes perfect sense here, as of course on
Taiwan.
Yes. On this channel, of course, we have been staunchly anti-war. That's our main kind of guiding principles, along with fighting and standing up for the First Amendment, and against really awful people that go to private islands and do really horrible things to small children. And if you agree with that, you're going to want to hear what we are going to be saying on Rumble. There's also a lot of immigration news. There's a lot of weird occult news. And we are going to be taking your calls in 30 minutes from members of LukeUnfiltered.com. So if you are a member, make sure to go to the Telegram channel right now and let me know that you want to call in, and we will be going to you in about 30 minutes from now. Mr. Pasta.
Yes, sir.
Where can people find out more information about you before we make this transition?
All right, I'm on Twitter at YoPasta. My new show is Pasta to Go, the number 2 for the peace sign over there. We are on YouTube, Rumble, and of course Twitter. And we have all the bells and whistles. I've been building the infrastructure on my new show. I started about 5 months ago in December. And it all started when I was working on the Jimmy Dore show. My business partner had gone to Moscow, and I went to Lahaina and did a documentary 30 days out from the fire, and I did a documentary 100 days out from the fire, and that documentary is going to be dropping in less than 9 days on my YouTube channel, Pasta to Go, the number 2, one word. Please go check it out and go support the film.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Anything
awesome.
about the blue lasers?
Well, that's funny because here's the thing. I didn't concentrate on so much what started the fire. We did do our due diligence and we talked to people, but whether it be laser, geoengineering, direct energy weapon, it was decades in the making of turning Lahaina into a tinderbox, water diversion, going away from that. It used to be the most green, plush area of Hawaii. Remember, Lahaina was the capital before it was colonized, and it was turned into a tinderbox, dry as can be. So, a conspiracy theory had said to me when I was in Hawaii, he said, well, why would I use a space laser even though there's one on that mountain when I can just go up there and drop a flare and forget about it? So, we concentrated on the situation that's going on, and right now, housing such a situation. And I talked to you about it before. This really goes into our isms. What rights did the government have? You know what I'm saying? Telling somebody who has a short-term property that they got to make it long-term. We have some of these people unhoused. And what is Hawaii without Hawaiians? So this video is just going to drop. And the bureaucracy. I mean, some of these libertarians are so right with the red tape over there. The HOA stopping little homes from getting up. I mean, it's just fascinating what's going on there. So I'm really excited about this film dropping, but I feel very, very sorry for the people of Lahaina.
Thank you for doing that work.
No kidding,
That's
man.
awesome.
Well, thank you.
At Liberty Lockpod on X if you want to support my work. Clint Russell's the name. If you want to really support me, you can subscribe on X at Liberty Lockpod, and I'll follow you back. Liberty Lockdown's the show. Got a new episode dropping tonight at 10 o'clock, and it'll be on YouTube and Rumble. And that's about it. Follow Steph. DM her inappropriate things.
If you're into music or detoxing, you can go to my link tree. Steph We Are Change on Instagram, Steph WRC on X.
And